check out beacons.ai/comicsfunprofit for all the C4 FAP links you could ever need, all in one place. You can provide feedback, listen, support, share, enjoy these. We have our Patreon there. You can buy us a beer or a coffee. You can check out our Instagrams, our Twitters, our Facebooks. Check out our YouTube page. You can email us. You can listen to our podcasts on Patreon, if you're a subscriber, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on Podbean. We have Google Podcasts on there. We have an Amazon wish list. You want to buy Kyle and I something? Fine. You can do that here. We appreciate it. We have Kyle's RPG podcast listed on there, so you can check out his Dork Day Afternoon offerings. We have Cowabunga links, so you can check out the Cowabunga Deep Discount FOC and pre-order list. Get on that. That's RLCS, so you can check that out as well. And we want to just give you opportunities to say hi, to check out what we're doing, support us if you would like, or just listen. Check out beacons.ai/comicsfunprofit for all the C4 FAP links you could ever need. Thanks. Back to the show.
Aloha, it's Jason from Ahoy. Welcome to a very special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing friends of the podcast, writers Tom Peyer and Stuart Moore. They are here to celebrate Ahoy Comic Magazine's 5th anniversary and to promote their latest series, The Wrong Earth, We Could Be Heroes. Issue 1 is already out in stores. Issue 2 comes out on December 6th. And also to Captain Ginger, The Last Feeder. Now, issue 1 is already in stores already. Issue 2 comes out on December 13th. Now, these two-part miniseries are to celebrate Ahoy Comics milestone. Tom and Stuart, welcome to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Great, Jason. Nice to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you very much. Now, Tom and Stuart, today's interview will focus, up on Ahoy Comics, your works at Ahoy. I'm going to ask, are there any other comics or any other works that you would like listeners to check out before we get into the interview?
Oh, well, let's see. We do have a few different 5th anniversary titles, which we'll be getting into.
Okay. All right. Stuart, what about you? Because I know you got some couple books from Aconoid Books. Do you want to promote?
Aconoid Books, yeah. That's the Marvel novels. I've written two. I've written a bunch of Marvel novels over the years, but the latest 2 are from the Marvel Crisis Protocol series. And the latest, that's Target Kree, and the latest one is Into the Dark Dimension. And those are big, giant scale, hopefully fun, exhausting to write books with a zillion characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a lot of fun. And the latest one came out a few months ago.
Hey, Stuart, I heard the whole Marvel movie thing is completely over with now.
Yeah, I hear that too, man. God, I not to hijack the show before we even get started, but I just started watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I love it. Like,
That's great. Yeah.
It's darker than I expected. It's really kind of wild.
I hear really good things from people who've actually seen the Marvels too.
Yes.
Really
yeah.
I'm going to say, Stuart, I'm a little behind on my Marvel movies. Yeah, because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I haven't.
It's really good.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, before we begin the interview, I want to give a big shout out to Hannah Bahedri of Superfan Promotions. Hannah, thank you very much for setting up this interview and providing advanced reading copies. Thank you very much. Now, listeners, Hannah has played a big part in helping us at the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast to set up our interview episodes. It was back in 2020 she reached out to us to see if we would be interested in interviewing Eric Palicki to promote Blacksmith from Ahoy Comics. And so, Hannah, for the last 3 years, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Stuart and Tom, would you like to add anything to that?
Oh, I'm in Hannah's fan club. She's great. She's not only like incredibly responsible and well organized and the right person to be doing this, but she's one of the funniest writers we work with. She's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stand her. She's awful. She's just awful. No, she is. I mean, actually, I can't stand her because she's such a good writer. But yeah, she's great. She makes everything we do. She helps. She and David Hyde both just help us reach so many more people than we would otherwise. And yes, Hannah, I worked with Hannah directly on the Ahoy prose serial for this fall. Partially Naked Came the Corpse, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And that was great too. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
So now, before we start getting into the nitty gritties of the questions and so forth, I got some of my information from. I read the article that Tom and Stuart have done interviews for The Beat, the blog of comics culture. That there was an article written on November 16th by Zachary Quantis. I'm sorry, Zach. I'm mispronouncing your last name. And also, you guys did an interview with Fanbase Press. You guys were interviewed by Barbara Dillon, a fan of the podcast. That article was released on November 9th. Now, listeners, if you guys get a chance, please check out those great interviews. Tom, I'm going to start with you first. Where can listeners follow you on social media?
Well, I still have a Twitter account, but I just use it to plug things and retweet and stuff. And that's Tom Peyer at Twitter. And I also have a Tom Peyer account at Blue Sky, which if I'm gonna post something funny, it'll come from there now.
Okay.
Because I'm mad at Twitter for being Nazis.
Yes. Stuart, what about you?
Well, I'm still on the Nazi platform, I'm afraid. I'm Stuart Moore 1 on Facebook, which I'm using a little more now, actually, and on Twitter, same address, and Stuart Moore 01 on Instagram, and I guess Threads now, and I have a website, stuartmoorewriter.com, which badly needs to be updated, but that has a good that is a good sort of that has listings on all my older books and all the stuff I've done, especially in prose of the last few years.
What about Blue Sky? Aren't you there?
I am on Blue Sky. I don't remember what my address is.
It's just Stuart Moore.
I think it's just Stuart Moore. Yeah, I think so.
Tom, I know you. I know you. Yeah, I know. For me, Twitter is I'm getting attacked by the AI porn bots. I was like,
yeah, they all want to be friends with me.
AI, how does it go? The male AI porn bots want to be you, and the female AI porn bots want you, something like that.
All right, so I'm gonna continue on. Actually, where can listeners follow Ahoy Comics on social media?
Oh, that's right. On Twitter, we're Ahoy Comic Mags. And what are we on Facebook?
Comics Ahoy, isn't it?
I think that's right. Yeah. And I think we just started doing a little Instagram activity.
Yeah, it's Ahoy Comics on Instagram.
Because it's very important to have a different name for every platform.
And then also too, you guys also have the website too, right? For if listeners listeners want to check out.
That's comicsahoy.com.
That is comicsahoy.com, and I finally updated it, so it's up to date with our book.
Good job.
Yeah, my brother's the one who always tells me. He says, "Are you guys still publishing? Like, there's no books past like November on there." Whoops, that's my fault. So, thanks, Jeff.
So, listeners, as you can already hear, you guys are in for a treat. This is going to be a fun episode. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, but it's just going to be fun because we just want to celebrate Ahoy Comics. Tom, I'm going to ask you this first question. So, how did this all get started?
It was like at the post-credits scene in those early Marvel movies. I would just go around and recruit people. I'd walk into their lives and recruit them into the Ahoy Initiative.
Wearing sunglasses and a cape, just sort of swirling around, coming out of the mist. There's Peyer. Yeah.
Right. Nobody messed with me. And there's Hart Seeley, our publisher, and Frank Camuso, who's a great cartoonist, and he's our chief creative officer, and I we all live in Syracuse, New York, and we've all known each other. The three of us have been good friends for decades. And when Hart, Hart and Frank both worked for the daily newspaper, and then like so many people at so many daily newspapers, then they didn't work there. And so Hart in particular was rooting around for something to do to just fill his days. And Frank and I are both crazy about comics, so he just Hart came up with the idea, let's publish some comics. And he is a great guy, and he found a bunch of money for us to use, took care of a lot of the publishing duties while I in particular got to do a lot of fun stuff while he was working and just putting together comic books. So we actually started in January of 2017. And we started like having meetings about, are we going to do this? What are we going to do? And September 2018, which is 5 years ago, this past September, our first run of comics came out, and that included the book I do with Jamal Igle, The Wrong Earth. That was our first one, and Stuart's Captain Ginger was in there. Captain Moore. I'm having a stroke here. Captain Ginger by Stuart Moore. And June Brigman and Roy Richardson was there, and we did Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror and High Heaven, a book that I did with Greg Scott. And so that was the beginning of it, and that's kind of what we're looking back on in our 5th anniversary celebration. We have new Adventures of the Wrong Earth and Captain Ginger, and we've got something more reflective of the current period, which is this Acid Chimp versus Business Dog comic, which teams up fantastically popular characters from a series My Bad and Billionaire Island, but both of which are written by Mark Russell. My Bad, he writes it with Bryce Engman, and it's just it's just the cliche team up between a dog and a chimp.
I like what Mark said about it recently. He said it was the first team up he'd written between two characters who couldn't talk to each other, and he said it kept him from overwriting the way he usually does.
Which he doesn't. But it's a really funny story. It's Acid versus Business Dog. It was so it's not exactly a team up, and I don't know who you think is going to win, but you'll see. And we also have a series that launched just before the 5th anniversary stuff, and that was Project Cryptid, which is a wonderful anthology that editor Sarah Litt put together, which is all these monsters that some people believe in, little stories about them, which is a brilliant idea. And so that's coming out. And the cherry on top is this thing Stuart put together for the back of all of our books during the 5th anniversary season, just the serialized text story launched by. I'll let you talk about it, Stuart.
Yeah, Stuart. Yes, go right ahead. Talk about that.
Oh yeah, it's called. Basically, when we launched Ahoy 5 years ago, we decided from the beginning, and this is. I think we were going to talk about this. This is partly where the slogan "Expect More" came from, was that the books have extra features in the back, usually short flash fiction type stories, but often also sometimes puzzles or poetry. We've run little editorial style cartoons occasionally as well. When we decided to launch that. One of the first people we contacted was Grant Morrison, who Tom and I have both worked with in the past. And Grant wrote three just wonderful little short stories, prose stories that ran in our first 3 books. And I think one of them is up on the Comics Ahoy website under extras. But so it was 5 years later. So I decided, why not contact Grant again? And I just I sent them an email and asked them if they were. I explained what I wanted to do, which was a serialized story with a lot of different writers. I wasn't sure exactly how many yet, Grant like clicked on it right away. He said, "I have an idea. Like I know what I want to do."
Mm-hmm.
And they sent us this thing called the annual Cozy Detectives Club. In Partially Naked Came the Corpse.
Mm-hmm.
And part one was about 5 times as long as we expected. It was very long. It ran in the back of Project Cryptid #1.
Yes.
And the story's been running. It has 13 different writers, and it's been running in the back of every Ahoy book this fall. It
Mm-hmm.
actually concludes in Captain Ginger: The Last Feeder #2.
Okay.
And it's wild. It's just it's surreal, but I think it hangs together. And I coordinated the whole thing, and by as soon as I started, I thought, oh God, what am I doing? Like, this is going to fall apart. Like, someone's going to flake out. And no one did. Like, everyone was very responsible. I had to keep the list of contributors a little bit fluid because I had to accommodate everyone's schedule. So I moved some people around. I brought some people in. I was lucky enough to bring in we got Alex Segura in a little late, and Torrin Grönbeck, who writes Thor and the Punisher for Marvel. And we were able to sort of mix them in. But again, I kept having to sort of change the order around a little bit. The one thing I knew was I wanted to write a chapter, but I wanted it to be late in the process, just in case the whole thing went completely off the rails, and I could steer it back on, which I didn't quite have to do. But the last 3 are by Hannah Bahedri and me, and then the British writer Keck W. finishes it off. And Keck's finale is hilarious. It's really funny, and he really does pull it all together. It's like improv. You just sort of work with what the previous people have done. You take it in your own direction, but you try not to contradict, and you try to sort of build onto it and make it something bigger than it was before.
It's all really funny, and it's I'm surprised it has rails to go back to, but it's really a treat to read the whole thing. But if you have to, I think you could start in the middle. Maybe Stuart agrees with me.
Yeah, I tried pretty hard to come up with brief recaps at the beginning of each installment, and the plot is only sort of the point. A lot of it is really just everyone having fun with this surreal murder mystery that kind of ranges through space and time. Mark Russell, when he wrote his chapter, just sort of took it to a Renaissance fair for some reason. Like, he just moved the location, and that was great. And then there's this whole thing with all these meadow larks, these birds that keep getting decapitated, and none of us could quite figure out why. I don't think any of us know quite why, but it just developed that way.
Did Grant start that?
What's that?
Did Grant start that? The decapitation?
No.
Remember who did?
I don't remember. It might have been Mark Russell. I don't remember. No, it was that. I think it might have been Kirk Vanderbeek.
Oh, no kidding.
But like everybody added things. Like the middle section. I don't remember which book it appeared in. I can look it up. But the middle section is by Lisa Jonte, and it's actually a poem. She's written several poems for the back of the Ahoy comics, and because it's a poem, it's a little shorter than the others. But it's just like it has a couple of lines that I remember Hannah and I talked about. We both puzzled over them, and they sort of lead you right to almost to the conclusion. Like, it's weird. The whole thing has a life of its own. It's very strange.
That's great. And all the writers you chose are really good and fun to read.
Well, one of the things we wanted to do, and Tom and I talked about this when we started it, was most of the writers we wanted to be people who had contributed several prose stories to Ahoy in the past, because we know, they know our sensibility, they know our style, and a nice little sort of celebration and thank you to bring them into as well. While we're doing this, in addition to bringing in some sort of new friends like Alex and Torrin and I can't remember who else. I don't even remember anymore. But it was fun. It was fun to put together. I hope people like it.
Let me just mention, because I know, because like you said, it's a 13-part series. We already know Grant Morrison wrote the first chapter, but listeners, just go to the Ahoy Comics website or just pick up one of the Ahoy comics, and it's in the back. They have the list of the authors, because you guys have a lot, and sometimes it's just, I don't want you guys to feel bad of, oh yeah, we should have mentioned this person. Oh God, we forgot their name too, So it's so they have an incredible list of writers.
Yeah, I'll mention too another article on the website, on the Comics Ahoy website, actually contains the first two chapters, if you just want to read it, by Grant, and then Bryce Ingman wrote chapter 2. So that's all up there, free to read.
Okay. All right. This is a dumb question.
My favorite kind.
I'll try to give you a dumb answer.
So, Partially Naked Came the Corpse. It's like, as you already mentioned, it's a 13-part chapter. It's like a small novel. Will this be released as like a backup in a trade or anything? All the chapters, or
We've talked about it, but we haven't figured out how yet.
okay.
I would like to put it together somehow. I think it would read really well that way, actually. Somewhat to my surprise, I thought it was going to be an incoherent mess, but I actually think it kind of works. But we haven't figured out quite the format. It's not long enough to be a novel. It's maybe 20,000 words total. I can almost see it as some sort of like designed up art book. The illustrations by John Proctor for every chapter are wonderful too.
Yes.
But like we haven't, so we'll probably do something with it, but we haven't quite puzzled it out yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. All right. Let me start jumping into. You know what I want before I start jumping into the 2-part series that you guys wrote. I wanted to ask to please promote the monthly newsletter from Ahoy Comics.
Yes. It's again, it's Hannah.
It's written by that awful Hannah. That terrible Hannah.
She tries to make it funny, but it's really sad.
It's just sad. Like, you don't want to read it. It's terrible. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It's a delightful read every month. It's free. You can subscribe to it pretty easily. There's a bit.ly/news ahoy, and I think everything is lowercase and ahoy is all caps. Bitly is very case sensitive, which I find offensive. But it's bit.ly/news ahoy. Ahoy is in all caps. And you won't be sorry. It'll take you to a place where you can subscribe. And it's free every month, and it's funny and it tells you everything about us.
I know. Tom, thank you very much. Okay.
Actually, Tom, I think in the I just looked it up. I think it might be all lowercase. News Ahoy.
Is the Ahoy lowercase? Let me check.
It is in this one book I just checked, but I don't know for sure.
All right, it's all lowercase.
Okay.
Because it's better to go by what Stuart sees than by what I remember.
Well, it might be wrong, but I'm going to check another one just in case. But we can keep talking.
You know what I'm going to do is navigate there, see if it works.
So how about this, Tom, while Stuart looks it up? How about, this is the perfect way. Would you like to talk about the wrong Earth? We could be heroes. But before we jump into the two-parter, for new readers, Tom, what is the wrong Earth about?
Well, the wrong Earth is it's a multiverse story. It's a relatively simple multiverse story. It deals with 2 Earths initially. One is like comics used to be when the Comics Code was in force, where the heroes are upstanding and patriotic and not terribly violent, and the crimes aren't that serious.
Yeah.
People just put on flashy costumes and steal jewels mostly. And the other planet is Earth Omega. That was Earth Alpha. On Earth Omega, it's more like a post-80s superhero comic where hero is an ultra-violent vigilante who sticks it to the man. And so what happens is these two get trapped in each other's worlds, and they don't fit in. It's like a double Howard the Duck situation with masked crime fighters. So that was our first series, and it's progressed since then to different status quos and stuff, but it still mostly deals with these 2 heroes who are the same guy, and they want the same things, but they're so different that it's just sort of impossible for them to get along.
And I'm going to say, because Tom, I'm going to say, I can't remember if you mentioned it, but the 2 heroes that you're talking about is Dragonfly, and Dragonfly Man, correct? That they swap.
Right. Dragonfly Man is the old-fashioned
Mm-hmm.
comics code guy who
Mm-hmm.
will help you across the street, and Dragonfly is the guy whose way you'd better not get in.
Before I continue on, Stuart, I'm going to ask, were you able to find the, I guess, like the bit.ly
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the, okay.
Yeah, it is bit.ly slash news ahoy, all lowercase. I just typed it in. It
Yeah.
works that way. Maybe it works the other way too. I don't know.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Believe me, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
So if you have to read that awful Hannibal Hedries newsletter, that's how you do it.
Well, you should read it out of guilt, really.
That's right. Yes.
That's why I read it.
This may not come across to listeners. I don't know. We love Hannah. We love the newsletter, and we love David Hyde too, who's a super fan. They're both like such an integral part of everything Ahoy does. So we're just having fun in case that doesn't come across.
And Stuart, I'm going to say thank you very much. Like I said, we want to have fun on this, during this interview, and the other thing too is that for listeners, and because Tom, I'll before I get to my next question, is that this is what I love about Ahoy Comics. It's just there's so much fun in it. There's stories that are a little dark and serious, like the crime noir Blacksmith. It's written by Eric Palicki. Oh my God, I can't remember who the artist is, but it's very good. But there is one scene that is very relatable and it was like out of left field, but it was very relatable and very real. And it's in the first volume where I know it was like the Minotaur is driving in a car with a vampire during the day, and it's Tom. I think you know what scene I'm talking about. And the way all the it has to be tinted so dark because the vampire's driving during the day to be protected. And what does the Minotaur do? He accidentally lets a fart out, and they're like, oh God, it's like someone rolled down the wind, and then you hear the vampire go, no, you can't, I'm gonna burn.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, that book to me has some of the feel of classic Buffy, where you have older sort of old monster and horror archetypes kind of reinterpreted in a slightly irreverent way, like that for the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
I think Eric's got a real touch for that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So
that's
all
right.
I'm going to continue. So Tom, what is the current 2-part story about?
Well, it sort of sets up, it resolves some things we had set up earlier that are pretty simple to follow if you didn't read them. But we just did a series where Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man were trapped on a third Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So the beginning of this 2-parter, the first half is all about what happens on campy Earth Alpha when there's no mass crime fighters around to protect them.
Yes.
And it's terrible. I mean, all the costume criminals just take over society.
Mm-hmm.
Without what can they do about it when there's no Dragonfly Man?
Yes.
That's what it's about. And then the second part of it kind of sets up where we're going,
yes.
and which will be very soon. We're not going to have a very long lag time between this and the next series.
Now, readers, I'm going to let you know that because that this 2-part series, The Wrong Earth, We Could Be Heroes. In the first issue, there's a nice, if you're new to it and you're going to go, what's going on? Okay, I kind of sort of know what's going on, but wait, why are all the criminals running around? I love it how Tom and Jamal, they do a nice little recap. It's very concise and to the point. And it brings everyone up to speed, and that's one of the things I love. It's not like, and it's in a couple, I think 2 or 3 panels, I think you showed it in, and it's very good.
Yeah, the series sounds like it's gotten to the point. It has a lot of characters, but it's not complicated to read. Like it's actually very easy to jump into for the most part.
I'm religious about being clear and letting everyone know what everything is, so they can just jump in and start enjoying it. And I always make sure the pages are numbered. I want everything to be easy for everybody.
I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't mean to laugh when you said I want to make sure every page is numbered. Sorry.
You were supposed to laugh when I said that.
Okay, all right. All right. So now I'm gonna let me preface this question, Tom, and Stuart, you can jump in. Now, when I read this two-part series, I get the vibe that it's one of those nice Silver Age Justice League crossover two-part stories.
Right.
That's the thing I love. And also, there's a bit of a touch of Crisis on Infinite Earth where Jamal in the first issue is like, oh my God, there's little callbacks, just very little callbacks.
Like the overlapping Earths or something.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that stuff.
And then the faces of, you see Dragonfly Man, Dragonfly, Stinger, Now, may I ask, if the Wrong Earth is a love letter to the past DC comics?
Part of it is, yeah. I mean, it's just in my DNA. That's what I was very, very young, got plugged into DC Comics and a little later Marvel. That's a big part of the reason I do this is because I still love what I loved when I was very young. So I just to my sort of like, I'm just cosplaying these old editors and writers who were around 60 years ago. That's the whole point of my life.
I want to ask Stuart, do you want to add anything to this?
Well, I was going to say, I think it's funny you talk about this stuff being in your DNA because, Captain Ginger, which we're going to talk about soon, that's totally my DNA. That's Cats and Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica too. Like it's a lot of things really, but it's all stuff that I can just channel. Like I just sit down. I just love to write it, and it's it's thanks to June Brigman that the whole thing works. But it's really gratifying when you do something like that and people relate to it. People respond to it in a way, because I think these books really do come from the heart for both of us.
They do. And the trick is to really draw on what you love and what you always loved and what you loved as a child without making it a nostalgia trip, and give it some reason to exist today. That's what we really try to do.
Stuart, you gave a perfect segue. Let's talk about Captain Ginger, the Last Feeder. Now, for listeners and new readers, I'm going to say even for me, what is Captain Ginger about? Well, we know
it's about a bunch of cats. It's about a bunch of cats running Starship, basically. But in a little more detail, it's what happens after the human race dies out. And the cats take over one starship. They're just they were experimental animals being worked on, an intelligence increase and physically enhanced as well. Like they're larger than regular cats. So they now have to run this ship that was not designed for them and is very old. And so they have to. And cats are not inherently pack creatures. They're not good at working together. So they have to learn to do that as well, and they have to learn to accept an authority, which is part of why Captain Ginger's status, his role as captain of the ship, is always very precarious. Like cats don't like to take orders. I have one around here who won't do a thing I say. So that's all part of it as well. Like it's kind of about societies. It's kind of about survival. And it's a lot about just jokes about litter boxes and having to eat emergency rations out of little cans, that sort of thing. And June Brigman, my collaborator and co-creator on this, she really makes all that work. She just loves to draw cats, and she and her husband Roy Richardson, who inks the book, they have an enormous number of cats. I can't keep track of how many. Last I knew it was 8 or 9. So she has lots of reference around, and she's just so good at capturing the way they move and the way they look, and giving them sort of more human intelligent expressions and body language, while still making them cats, like while keeping them cats. So So it's just always great to work with. Also, her storytelling is just perfect. Like it's just impeccable. Like it's never confusing. Even Tom, you'll appreciate this because you were editing books. You and I were both taught comics editing by some of the people who've been in the industry for a while, and she always has the characters talking in the right order, like which is almost a lost art. It's not anything a reader would ever notice, but it makes my life so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Jamal's good at that too.
Yeah.
Now, Stuart, bring us up to speed. What is this two-part limited series about?
Okay, this is about what happens when rather suddenly Captain Ginger is teleported off his starship using a technology he didn't even know existed, and finds himself on a space station that may or may not contain the secret of his father, whom he's never known. Captain Ginger is the only ginger cat aboard his starship, which the humans originally called Intrepid, but which they call the hiss, bite, claw, sometimes fall. It's just sort of cat language.
Okay.
But he's never known who his father was. His mother wouldn't talk about it. And so there's an old ginger cat out there somewhere. And this is about what happens when he finds himself on this rather mysterious space station that may contain the secrets to that, and or may contain the secrets to what remains of the human race and what might come next for humanity. So, and within that, it's I hope it's just sort of a fast-paced adventure as well. I really tried to leave room at the end for the cats to really be cats and show off what they can do and rip things apart and fire blasters and do all kinds of fun stuff that cats do. Thankfully, my cat has not learned to operate a blaster. That would not work out well for me. But yeah, I hope people like it. I had a lot of fun with it, and June put everything into it. She put her all into it. It's beautiful.
This two-parter is exceptional. I was so happy reading it. The climax is perfect.
Thank you.
It's
yeah, in a way we sort of did two different things with these books, I think, because The Wrong Earth, We Could Be Heroes really sets up the next series, which is, as Tom said, is coming very soon.
Yes.
And Captain Ginger, The Last Feeder, is a little more of a capper on what we've done so far. I think you can jump right into it. You don't have to have read the earlier material, but it really sort of it brings some of the character threads we've done around a bit, and kind of clears the decks for what might come next.
Oh, okay. Because listeners, because before we started the interview, I talked to Stuart. I told Stuart that I'm really not too familiar with Captain Ginger, but I've read the first two issues and I love it. I'm hooked. And you're right, because when I just started to read the first issue of The Last Feeder, I didn't need to go, wait a minute, who is this person? What is going on? It was just it was an easy access for me to just.
Oh, good. I'm very glad to hear
in.
that. I'm very glad to hear that, because I always try to do that, and sometimes you get too close to the story, and so that's really nice.
It was really easy for me to keep everyone straight because I didn't care.
I work toward that sort of ennui on the part of my readers. I think that's sort of uncaring. Oh, what the hell, you know?
Bullseye.
Stuart, let me just. All right, let me just ask this one question. You mentioned the starship Intrepid. When I saw the ship the first time, is it based off Star Blazer's space battleship Yamato? It looks like it.
Yeah, I've never talked to June about that. I didn't give her much direction for the design of the ship. She pretty much came up with it. I suspect that that's a coincidence, and that they're both designed to look like a battleship.
Okay.
To me, it looks like a real battleship. There's something else I see in it that I've also never asked June about, which is it kind of reminds me of the flying ship in Yogi's Ark Lark, which was an animated cartoon from the 70s. It was the first one that teamed up Yogi Bear with all the other Hanna-Barbera characters, and they were just flying along on this flying ark. Looks like our ship looks a little like that too, but I don't know if that's a coincidence. But I don't know.
All right, Fun question.
I think it really is patterned after an actual Marine battleship.
Oh yes.
And I think that's probably all three of the ships we're talking about are. So like we're going down a pop culture rabbit hole when there's probably a simpler explanation.
Yes.
But the
All right,
rabbit
so
hole's fun. So.
oh yes, yes. All right, so fun question, Stuart. And does your cat or any of the Ahoy staff pets make cameo in this two-part series?
Well, when we started Captain Ginger, both June and we each had a ginger cat, and I think we both sort of based the character a little bit on our own cats. Mine is no longer with us, sadly, and I don't think hers is either. So I don't no, my cat. I have a wonderful little tiny tiger cat named BB, whose brother was the ginger cat. But she doesn't really fit in there. I did put a character named BB in at the beginning, but she was very minor, and I don't even remember if she physically resembled her.
Tom, this is just a funny question I'm going to ask. Please, and so when Stuart ran this spot, did Stuart ask you, "Hey, can we start putting Ahoy staff pets into my book?" Did you say yes or no, or was this like no?
Stuart does what he wants. Stuart knows it's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yeah, I don't remember us getting into pets too much. Like, does Hart have pets? I don't even know.
Not currently. He's had dogs.
He's had dogs. Yeah,
that's right. And I've had cats too, but not for a long time.
When we used the second series of Captain Ginger, Dog World, involves intelligent dogs as well, and that I had to pretty much leave to June. June, among other things, does wonderful animal illustrations for magazines as well, like real life animal illustrations. And she knew all the breeds. I just let her. I sort of told her the various characters, like in the various characterizations of the different dogs. She said, "Oh, that sounds like a greyhound," like, or that's a setter, like she that was mostly her.
She is really something.
She's great.
Before we still have a little bit more time, I'm going to ask, are there any other Ahoy comics that you guys want to promote? Like we've already talked about Project Cryptid, which is very good. I love. I'm sorry, my story I love is Elisa Whitney's and Morissette's short story about the Chupacabra, I believe it's called. That I love.
Yeah.
The Chupawawa.
Or Chupawawa. Yeah.
Chupacabra and a Chihuahua, mate. Yeah, it's a great. I love that one.
I had to give a presentation for Project Cryptid to Simon & Schuster recently, our book distributor, and I was very proud of myself that I was able to say Chupawawa, offspring of a Chupacabra and a Chihuahua, like perfectly the first time. Like I knew I was going to screw it up, and I did. But yeah, it's a very funny story. It's a very witty story, and Morissette's, he's just an amazing artist.
Yes.
His stuff is beautiful.
I love his work. His covers, stunning always.
He did the cover to the first issue of Con and On, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, and which is the cover of the trade paperback too, I think. And that's a wild book. That's by Paul Cornell and Marika Cresta, and that is about 5 separate years in the lives of a group of comic book professionals and fans as they attend the same giant West Coast comic convention every year. But it hops like 5 or 6 years every time, I think. And it starts in, when does it start? It starts in the 90s sometime.
Yes, it does start in the 90s.
Yeah, like very, very early 90s.
And it goes through to 2022. So it's pretty it's very well observed. It's very touching. It's like where things come around. And it's a celebration of fandom in comics, but it's also oddly sad at times. Like it really kind of gets to you after a while.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. The third volume of Second Coming, I think, just came out. Second Coming in trade paperback, and it's just such a beautiful piece of writing and art. It's such a good story. And Second Coming, if you don't know, deals with the world's most powerful superhero and his relationship to a once again resurrected Jesus Christ and their friendship.
Yes.
And people were kind of expecting it to be a savage satire of religion, and it is definitely not that. It's an examination of the uses of two kinds of power. This sort of gentle, soft power of Jesus Christ, and the sort of two-fisted power of a superhero. It's just excellent. But the new series Trinity is so moving and so surprising that I couldn't recommend it more.
It's also like the series is also, in addition to being everything Tom just said, it's also just a very funny buddy comedy with these two characters who both have different sorts of powers and very different approaches on to how to use them. But it's just a lot of it is about babysitting and trying to get through life, and in addition to fighting supervillains and dealing with God, who's a major supporting character and is always very disappointed with his son. So there's all of that in there, and the third volume Trinity really takes it to another level. It gets very there's some very wrenching family stuff in there. It's like Mark really took his time laying the groundwork, had a lot of fun, wrote a very entertaining story, and then about halfway through Trinity, he just kind of it's like he slams you in the head with it. It's wonderful. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Absolutely right. Mark has this sensational gift as a writer, which is that you can think about something very deeply and communicate it in a way that goes down easily. It's a rare gift.
I'm gonna say this as a Christian, I did look through at least the first 2 volumes of Second Coming, and I start to read the third, the Trinity. And Tom, you are right. It is very moving. It's very touching. It doesn't poke fun at Christianity. And let's be honest, okay? And I'll be honest as a Christian, is that we also make fun of the Bible. We make fun of Jesus. Like a friend of mine, me and my friend of mine would say, why do we have to go to church every Sunday? It's the same message, Jesus came to earth, he forgave our sins, and but Trinity, but it's very touching. It's very moving. It's very thought-provoking in a sense of thought-provoking of how is my walk with Jesus? Because there's some scenes where Mark, where he's having Jesus, preach to he sets up a new church, and Jesus, and I love it where Jesus goes, he starts talking about, why are you guys buying $5 coffees at your churches? And I was like, oh God, it's like, because I've been to churches where it's like they serve coffee and we should drink our coffee outside before we come in, or it's like, it's the money changer scene in the Bible. It's like, it really makes you stop and think. It really does. But also too, like you said, there's Stuart and Tom, like, it's not only just about the story about Jesus, but also about Sunstar too. And when he was growing up, and I'm not going to spoil how he lost his parents, but it was like, oh my God, it put a different spin on how I read, because I've read Superman comics in the 70s, and you see Superman fly, grabs Lois and he flies off into the outer atmosphere land, and Lois is all great and she's like, yay. But we never think about the physical realities of, oh my God, what happens if we do fly someone out, to the outer edges of the atmosphere? Well, like I say, it's very touching. It's very moving.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. And then Stuart, like you said, Con and On. Oh my God, that is an amazing series. It's very nice, and yet, like you said, it's a little heartbreaking too. It is.
Yes. Oh. The trade paperback of that one will be out in late March.
But it's a very good. I'm gonna slowly wrap things up. I'm gonna ask. Well, before I wrap up, do you guys want to? Is there any other things you guys want to? Any other Ahoy comic? You guys want to promote or anything? Anything else?
I'd like to say that, and this won't thrill you, but we're going to make a couple of huge announcements for 2024 that I think will really spin the propellers on your hats. I mean, they're going to be just We have big announcements coming. A couple
Right.
of extremely huger projects than usual.
Hmm.
And I think they're very exciting. And I wish I could tell you what they are, but I
No,
can't.
yeah. Hmm.
I really wish we could. Tom, you just got in some pages from one of them today that are gorgeous. They're so beautiful. It's really something. So,
We really did.
So,
And
funny question, Tom. So, like you said, these huge announcements, it's going to spin our propellers on our little caps. Are you guys going to be, like sending out caps to comic book shops to say, hey, these are the big announcements?
we'll send you one, Jason.
Okay.
yeah, I think that would make us look like nerds. I don't really think we should do that.
Okay. All right.
Oh, propeller beanies are cool, Stuart.
Oh, I can't keep up. I'm sorry.
All right. Now, before I ask this question, um, you know, like because Stuart, Tom, you guys said you guys love comics, you love reading comics. I love reading comics. And I'm going to be honest, I am not looking for dirt or negative comments about other publishers because I believe each publisher brings something different to the table. Stuart, I'm going to start with you first and then Tom. What do you love working what do you love about working at Ahoy Comics?
Well, my work at Ahoy is freelance, but I've learned a lot of things. I'm working with distributors and a lot of ends of the business that I haven't done before, and that's been great. That's been really educational.
Mm-hmm.
As far as writing, I like that they trust me. Actually, that's true in every aspect of what I do at Ahoy. I'm trusted. It doesn't mean I win every argument. I would never expect that. But it's probably of any place I've ever worked, the place where I feel I feel the most respected. I feel like the most like people I'm and I do feel like all of us are pretty much in tune with the vision of the place. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's it there we can argue a lot about strategy or an artist here or there or how to promote things like that. But I think we're all pretty in sync about the kind of books we're trying to do and what and how we want to get them across. And that's a very important thing, and it just makes everything a lot easier and smoother and nicer.
Well, again, when Stuart talks about how much we trust him and stuff, he's misinterpreting the fact that we just don't care that much.
I thought I was just confusing you, so you wouldn't. I was like, oh, we got to send this many copies to Simon and Schuster, and do this with it. And you're like, all right, whatever, dude, like whatever you're talking about.
But yes, we trust you, Stuart. However, no, just working on work you believe in with people you really like is heaven. I mean, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it. I don't want to do anything else.
Stuart and Tom, I'm going to close with that. So, because we're pretty much almost out of time. Tom, Stuart, mahalo. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you. I wish again, happy 5th anniversary. I wish you guys continued success, especially in 2024. I cannot wait to hear what announcements you guys have set up. I also want to thank Hannah Superfan Promotion for setting up this interview and sending me
her again? My
yes,
God.
her again.
What is this, the Hannah show?
Yes, it is.
Comics for fun, profit, and Hannah.
Now, if you are a new reader or a lifelong comic book reader, please check out Tom's 2-part story, The Wrong Earth, We Could Be Heroes. Issue 1 is out already in stores. Issue 2 comes out on December 6th. And Stuart's 2-part Captain Ginger story, The Last Feeder. Issue 1 is already out in stores. Issue 2 comes out on December 13th. Listeners, I love reading Ahoy comics because they have a wide range of stories they tell. It ranges from horror to crime noir, as I mentioned, Blacksmith, to fun anthologies such as Project Cryptid. The most important thing I love about Ahoy Comics is that and as Tom and Stuart has said, it's made with love. It's a love for storytelling and a love for comics. Tom, Stuart, and I'm being serious on this part. Listeners, if you have a friend or if you have a friend who loves comics, pick up The Wrong Earth Trade or even this 2-part series and the either a Captain Ginger trade or this 2-part Captain Ginger story or serial or any of the other Ahoy comics, and just bundle it together. Give it as a Christmas present or as a birthday present, for your friends to check out. I want to thank Drew. I'm sorry?
Can I just jump in? I just wanted to mention that because we forgot to say this before. The books are all also available on Amazon Comixology and on the Omnibus app if you prefer digital editions or can't find the physical ones.
No, but that's perfect. That is perfect. Thank you very much, Stuart, for mentioning that. I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes, and thank you, listeners. If you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And listeners, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
Our LCS is Cowabunga Comics, Lake Country, Wisconsin's best pop culture destination for new comics, back issues, gaming, retro video games, vinyl, and figures. Give them a call, 262-569-9999. Check them out online at cowabungacomics.com or follow them on Twitter at Incredicow. They are our LCS, and we utilize their deep discount mail order service to bring Oconomowoc, Wisconsin closer to us. They'll take care of you. Tell them Drew and Kyle sent you. Say hi to Eric and James from us. If you need an LCS, you can't go wrong with Cowabunga Comics.